Today we're learning about literary essays. So we're not doing nonfiction anymore. Literary really means any type of literature, any type of writing. But what is a literary essay and how do you write one? Let's find out. First, let's talk about our purpose. What are we trying to accomplish? We're trying to produce clear, coherent writing in which the development and organization are appropriate to task, purpose, and audience. But really, we're trying to draw evidence from literary texts to support analysis, reflection, and research. If you don't know what that means, don't worry, we're going to walk through it. To put it simply, a literary essay is writing about reading. Today, I hope you'll learn that to write well about reading, you need to be wide-awake readers. Some people fall asleep when they're reading, but because you're writers, you need to read yourself awake. To become wide-awake readers, you really have to read carefully. Pay attention to the details others might let pass them by. And then you need to be prepared to write. To grow your ideas about those ideas. Today we're going to reread a familiar story. The reason we want to reread a familiar story is so that this time we can really turn our mind on as a writer. We want to look for moments or details that strike us as important to the whole text. Here are some questions I want you to be thinking about as you're reading today. What does this text teach about the characters in the text? What does this teach about life? What does the author want the reader to know about? What does this make you realize? What surprises you about this text? Does this text connect to other texts that you've read? What issues or life topics does this connect to? And what's important about this text? As you're reading, think about these questions. Maybe even have them handy. As we work our way through this unit, we're going to learn how to write a literary essay. But our steps are pretty simple so far. The steps to writing a literary essay so far is to ask yourself those questions. Then we're going to grow ideas about a topic based on those questions. Pause the video right now while we go reread Amazing Grace. Now that you've reread Amazing Grace, it's time to think like a writer. We're going to make a claim based on one of the writer's questions. Then we're going to find evidence from the text that supports our claim. We've done this before in our informational writing, so you should be familiar with the process. But this time, you're going to find evidence within the story to support your claim. Let's try it together. We could go through page by page and ask ourselves these questions about the characters and their life and what it makes you think and realize. Instead of doing that, I'm just going to pick one category to give you an example of the type of thinking we're asking you to have when you're acting like a writer. So, for example, what does this text teach about the characters? So, in this case, I'm looking at the book Amazing Grace, and I'm realizing Grace must have heard a lot of stories over her lifetime. Well, the author didn't say that. So how do I know that? My evidence is that Grace can act out all these different stories, all these different parts. To be able to act them out, that means Grace knows those stories well. She's heard them all before and very often. And her subjects are very diverse. She has so many different types of characters she's played. That means Grace is read to or reads a lot herself. Today we're going to do something called a quick write. In a quick write, we're going to answer the questions about a book and list as many ideas as possible in a short amount of time. A quick write is a way to brainstorm for topics. We've done this before. So you can list them as bullet points, sentences, word clouds, a web, however you want to answer the questions. The idea is to generate ideas that you can possibly use to create a literary essay out of. But here's the challenge. Dig deeper. We aren't kindergartners anymore. We don't just want to retell a book. The author's already done that for us. The idea is to connect to the book, connect it to other books, connect it to your life, the world, problems you've noticed. Connect to the characters. How are they similar or related? Connect them to yourself. Connect to what the author is trying to teach you, and then dig deeper. These literary essays should be very complex, even though they're fairly short. It shows that you are capable of thinking deeper questions and answering things that you wonder about without the author having to tell you. To get you started, here are a few of my quick writes that I wrote down about Amazing Grace. Grace has a huge imagination. You can tell that. She reads a lot of different genres. And Grace isn't sure if black girls can be Peter Pan. She hasn't experienced that before. So far, she's relied on others to tell her what to believe. So she has to prove to herself that that is right or wrong. Now off you go. Do your own quick write, answering all of the questions. I've put the template with the questions in your assignment on Teams.